Okay, good morning, everybody. What I want to look at today is the strange story that occurs with Ruvain, and it's a story that that we kind of misunderstand, and it becomes a difficult situation with Ruvain. But let's try and understand what Ruvain does and shows the person that he is. It says Vayelech Ruvain b'mei ketir chitim. So Ruvain, at the time of the wheat harvest, Ruvain Vayelech, he goes Vayimtza dudaim basadeh, and he finds dudaim basadeh. He finds these dudaim are, they translate them as mandrakes. It's some type of vegetable of some sort. So he finds these mandrakes, and what he does is that he and he brings them to Leah, his mother. So Rachel says to Leah, give me from the dudaim of your son, the dudaim, the mandrakes, whatever exactly the vegetable is. So or the fruit. So Rashi says on that, that it's important to understand, why does the Torah have to give us the b'mei ketir chitim, the time of the harvest? It comes to teach us the shivcha, the praise of the shvatim, of the tribes. That it was the time of the harvest. He didn't in any way touch anybody else's things to bring chitim and so'orim, the wheat or barley. He brought something that was hefker, something which people aren't makpid on. So what is Rashi saying? The Emek David, the Netziv, explains that what he was saying is that when Ruvain goes out at the specific time, since the time of the wheat harvest, people are concerned about their wheat, they're concerned about their barley, they're concerned about the specific grain harvests, and anything else that's around, they're not really worried about it. Since they're not worried about it, so therefore it becomes hefker. Since it's hefker, he can take it, even though they didn't have their own specific dudaim, nonetheless he could take it because people weren't makpid on it, and that makes it possible. Rashi asks, what are dudaim? So he says there, he says sigli. He says sigli. Sigli is some type of a grass of some sort. And then he says Beloshen Yishmael Yasmin. In the language of in Arabic, it's called jasmine. So what are dudaim? Dudaim are violets or jasmine. And there's something about this jasmine that Rachel wanted from Leah. So she says to Leah, give me please of your dudaim. And the Netziv explains, what does it mean of your dudaim? And it's a beautiful and an important idea, that she just wants some of them. Miktas mehem. It's not appropriate, it's not derech eretz to ask kol asher lechaver, from everything that belongs to your chaver. Even if he needs more than, even if you need it more than he does, it's not appropriate for you to ask for everything that belongs to your friend. You ask for some of them, and that's just an important derech eretz that Rachel is teaching us in this pasuk. Now, what is important is that why does Ruvain do that? So Ruvain, he says he finds these things. He comes upon them. It just happens to find them. So the Netziv there points out, it says that was the thing with Ruvain. Ruvain, when he happened upon things, when things happen to him, he takes them on. That even and he knows what's a good thing, what's a bad thing, and he finds these dudaim, and he takes them to his mother. And when Rachel asks, the response of Leah is Vatomer la hama'at kachtech ishi. She just goes nuts. Well, it wasn't not enough of you to take my husband. You even want to take that which belonged from my son, the gift that I got from my son. Fine, I understand that, says Rachel. Let's make it a bartering. You give me of the dudaim, and in return for that, I will give you this night to be with Yaakov, in return. So therefore, in other words, it's not me taking. We're actually doing some type of like almost a bartering, as I said, so that there's no, I don't owe you anything, and you don't owe me anything. Rashi says that it seems to be a bit strange, exactly what she's saying. Why is it that that they do the swap? So Rashi says, Rachel says, tonight I'm supposed to be with Yaakov. Obviously, they had different nights that they were together. I'll take them. And because this one moment in time that Rachel was mezalzel, mezalzel is a difficult word. She kind of like you to think lightly of you don't take it seriously enough, because one night that she didn't take it seriously to be with her husband, so therefore she lost the opportunity to be buried with him, which is a very difficult thing to really try and understand. Let's try and understand where she's coming from. That so Rachel understands that she's doing exactly the same as what she did on the night of the wedding. If you remember, Yaakov is expecting to find her, and who's he going to find? He's going to find Leah, and that's quite a difficult thing for Yaakov. That she's reliving this enormous trauma, that you can imagine, this trauma that that Yaakov went through on that night of his wedding, and now she's doing the same. And again, she never speaks to Yaakov about it. It's a very similar process of what happened before. So why does she lose the possibility of being buried with him? So that because the greatest thing is that seems to be for her to be able to recreate or to continue to create the Jewish people would have been the most important thing. But because she doesn't do that, so she loses the opportunity to spend eternity with Yaakov in a sense, and she gets buried on the road to Beit Lechem. So the Torah carries on. Vayavo Yaakov min hasadeh ba'erev. So now this thing is now going to play itself out. Yaakov comes from the Sadeh in the evening. Vayeitzei Leah likrato, and Leah comes out. Vayeitzei Leah likrato. She goes out to greet him. Vatomer elai tavo, and she says to him, "Come, kischor schartich b'duda ebeni, because I have hired you. I've acquired you through the dudaim, through these dudaim that she had. And he was with her that night." We don't find in the commentaries necessarily that that Yaakov does anything. Yaakov responds in any way. Rashi says, for example, that on that night, HaKadosh Baruch Hu siyo sheyatza misham Yisachar. HaKadosh Baruch Hu helped that on that night, that through their relationship that night, Yisachar is born. And what's amazing is that Yisachar is born, and Yisachar, and I'm not sure what to do with this, but it's important for us to understand that the Yisachar is the person who represents Torah for Am Yisrael. He is the one who carries the load of Torah. He bears the burden of Torah. He's the donkey, and in that way, it's interesting that he's coming out of this relationship. Again, I'm not sure what to do with it, but it's something to bear in mind. The Netziv points out that there was something a little bit off here in what Leah did. Vayeitzei Leah likrato. Leah goes out to greet him. So says the Netziv, Afal gav shelo haya midat tznius. It wasn't the most tzanua thing for her to go out and invite him in. Mikol makom noach haya la lahakel bichvoida. It was it was fine for her to lahakel bichvoida, to take her own kavod, her own person, her own esteem lightly, mishayitbayesh et Rachel, than to embarrass Rachel before Yaakov lo'hala, for Yaakov to go into Rachel's tent, and then he'd have to leave there, and he'd have to go into her tent. And so here you see that there's actually a payback. There's a payback of the good that Rachel did for Leah. Remember, Rachel gave Leah all the secrets, all the simanim, so in order that Leah wouldn't be embarrassed. And now on this night, many years later, Leah, in a way, repays that so that Rachel won't be embarrassed by making sure that she is prepared to humble herself in order to get in order to bring Yaakov in so that she doesn't get. And on that, perhaps you can say that that's the reason why Yisachar becomes the one who carries Torah. I'm just thinking about it now. Because if a person is prepared, number one, to humble themselves, so we know that Torah is doimel hamayim. Torah is like water. Water only travels downstream. Water doesn't travel upstream. And so therefore, for a person to learn, for a person to engage, for a person to grow, they have to humble themselves. In the same way as Leah was makil on her kavod, and number two, that she didn't want to embarrass anybody. And we know that it says Talmidei Chachamim marbim shalom ba'olam, that Talmidei Chachamim bring shalom, bring peace, bring harmony into the world. And the one single way in which we bring harmony in the world is to ensure that the kavod, that the honor of the other person is fundamental in the way we engage with them. And so maybe that could be the reason why why Yisachar, who represents Torah, is born out of this relationship. And it's such an interesting story because we find that that Reuven is really the protagonist in the whole story, that he's the one who finds these mandrakes. He's one, but we don't speak much about Reuven. But Reuven is the one who, I think at the end of the day, is the cause of this whole process, in typical Reuven fashion. Because what? Vayelech Reuven, we don't know what he's doing. He's just walking around. Vayimtza dudaim basadeh. He finds these dudaim. It's happenstance. It's not thought out. It's not, and the Reuven process, as we're going to see later on, is always about that. He finds things, things happen in the moment, and he reacts or responds to those things in the moment. In this case, he did the most amazing thing. He brought these things to Leah, his mother. In order for her to have them, it was obviously a very precious thing to have. But then the thing unfolds, and what unfolds ultimately is this incredible thing. If you look at it, the sisterly love between Rachel and Leah, and the care that they have for one another, which ultimately leads to the importance of what Torah is in this world, and that is not to embarrass, but to be mevatel on one's own kavod in order to learn, in order to grow. Let's stop there. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Thanks for joining.